Alright, so as I mentioned, the part of the design pattern is to actually be able to dispatch a command. So you have like a command bus that's like very simple piece of software, but it's very powerful. So okay, let's start with the dispatcher. So I will go to SRC, my app. You see, I have application layer. So this is an application layer component. I mean, component like as a part of the software. I don't mean like an actual Angular component. So why? Why is it like this? Well, it's because application layer is something that is very thin. It doesn't know much about like low level details. It only answers one simple question: when. So when something happens, it needs to know what to do. That's it. You don't bloat any logic in there. Application logic is linking logic between A element of a system with B element of a system, and that's it. And it can be also like dealing with a lot of stuff like security or whatever things like this. It's actually pretty cool. But think about it like this: when something happens in my system, then I should be doing something else, and it doesn't know how those things are done. So it only knows who should actually execute it, and then delegates that job to someone else. That's it. Keep it thin. Because it will also help you with the refactor. Alright, so let's have a look. So I open the application and I have two files. One is called dispatcher. Here we go, it's injectable, and that's it. It's just a class. So let's make a test. You know, I'm a big fan of TDD, so we're gonna do TDD, and that's what's gonna remain constant in this course. Alright, so I have a describe. Let me do some before each action. Here we go. I set up configured the test bed. You know, this command bus and the dispatcher is like really integral part of the Angular ecosystem. So hence probably the application layer is usually coupled with your framework in some way. And then here we go. So I provide a dispatcher class. I have made a bit of like a stub provider. So this is the kind of a state thing I was talking before. So I'll get to it a little bit later. Then I create this. So this is my user state. You can look in my previous videos what does it actually represent. But to be honest, you don't have to worry about it. So a dispatcher, what it will do, it will receive a command from the UI, which is a smart component, and then it will handle it. Pretty much, it will find a handler, and then the handler will actually delegate it down the road. So it will use, I don't know, in this case, user state. So this is why I need to make it like this. And here we go. I'm gonna make a dispatcher. I'm gonna make a user state, and then I'm gonna inject it from the test bed. Okay, so far so good. Let's make some tests. So yeah, it should dispatch to handler. So I will go with the approach where you actually register a handler at runtime. So it will look sort of like this. So a dispatcher will have a register handler command, function, and then it will have some command by type, and then it will have a handler spy. So let's make a handler spy. At the moment, let's think about user state as like a handler, but technically a handler should be only one class with a single method handle on it. We're gonna get to that in a second, but for now, for the argument's sake, just to keep it simple, think about the user state as part of like every method in the user state object. You can have a look like this: load users, for example. It's actually a command handler. You can see it even expects a command in here. So, and this is typically like pretty good pattern in most of the cases when you use state. Is like when you are medium-sized app, you're no longer like super small, but you're also not super big. A state will do just fine. But the stuff I'm showing you today is when you go enterprise level. This is when you actually your states start having like 300 lines of code and stuff like this. Keep it small. So I get asked a lot like how big is big? Well, I think hard to say, but if you have like I don't know, functions with, there are many definitions, but some people say 4 lines. Yeah, 4 lines, pretty ridiculous, but it's actually true. Or maybe like a half of the view, so like I don't know, 20 lines, 25 is a typical standard. That's more than 25 is definitely too big. How many functions? Well, one function, the best. But if you can have more, sure, you can have it. But just keep it clean all the time. Okay, so what comes next? Well, we're gonna have a command. A command will have a type. This is a bit silly and it's difficult to deal with in TypeScript because you can say, hey, you have types. Well, yeah, I have types. But I will show you why it will not work in Angular. So bear with me on that. For now, let's just have a type. And then every command has a payload. And here we go. So a dispatcher. Then after I register the handler and on the dispatcher, I also dispatch a command. I expect the handler, which is my method on the user state, should actually keep working. Cool. So as you can see, if I run this test, it's gonna fail miserably. It's because I don't have those functions. I'm just gonna run it for argument's sake, but of course, let's keep building. Okay, so we know we need 2 functions, but how do we actually register the stuff? Well, let's have a handler's private property. It could be a map, actually map would be better, but I'm gonna remove it all the way very soon, so I just wanna keep it like that. Here we go with it. I mean, it looks like you passed, but of course this is karma, 0 success, no method found. This is the first failing test. So here we go, I'm gonna make a register handler function. For now, don't focus on this so much, I mean, it's bad code anyway. Here we go. So to my private handlers, I'm gonna add the handler. And then in my dispatch method, I'm just gonna execute a handler's command. And that's it. We pass. Favorite part, refactor. What can we refactor? The code looks clean except for those any's and stuff. Well, I would say everything is to refactor. I mean, it's terrible code. Why is it terrible code? Well, I missed the point. I mean, it's gonna work, but it's as I said, working is a junior level. I mean, this is horrible. I mean, first of all, register handler. Why do I have a method like this? Well, because I want to register handler, I get that. But I'm why do I do it in the runtime? I mean, will I ever imagine to actually attach a handler at runtime anywhere in my application? No, you want to set it up front. You don't want to have a register handler method at all. And where is the single responsibility? I mean, what is the dispatcher? Dispatcher, I would expect a dispatch method on it. That's fine, except for this angry type. And of course, type safety. That's what it should do, right? So why is it register handler? Maybe I should have something like a registry. Then I could register those handlers, but not here. I mean, that's breaking the single responsibility. So there's a lot of things to do. So I'm gonna show you how to do it better. Okay, so let's follow on this idea of handler registry. Here we go. I created a new file called handler registry. When I open it, it's just an interface. So an idea is that we want to have a handler registry in which we can register the handler. So it will take a command and the actual command handler that it needs to register. And then we can have a resolve handler. It's, once you register, you also want to get those handlers. So then we want to resolve them by the command and then get the command handler out. Pretty basic. But in order to get it done, I also need to make the interface for the command handlers. So that's going to be a little bit more problematic with the whole user state. It's because it has multiple handlers, but this is why you should also not blow the whole thing right there. But other than that, it's pretty much standard. Okay, what do we do next? So once we have this interface defined, the next thing is obviously to make use of it. So I'm gonna head to the infrastructure. Application can skip a domain sometimes, and just go directly to infrastructure, especially when it's application infrastructure, not like a domain infrastructure. So in here, I made a new folder called handler registries, and then let's start coding it. So I'm gonna make describe. I'm gonna call it in-memory handler registry, because the means of actually registering is just in memory. It's not like I'm gonna have it in local storage or whatever. I'm just gonna keep it in memory, and it's gonna be simple, like in-memory data structure, like exactly like it was in the dispatch. So first, it should result registered handler. Here we go. I made a new class. Then I made a command that I want to be dispatching, or actually linking. Then I made a handler. Now I'm gonna make a handler registry. Register handler, pretty much the same as it was before. And then I'm gonna resolve the handler based on that command. And then I expect it to be the same. So pretty much, I register a command with the command handler, and then I resolve it based on the command, so I should get the actual handler. And then I expect that the handler and the one I register in the register handler is the same. It would check exactly the same instance. So let's go ahead and code it. So yes, it's injectable as well. And then let's have a look. So it needs to implement the handler registry. So you can clearly see I'm missing some method. It's gonna be the same. I'm gonna have a handlers and then register method like it was before, and then the resolve is also here. So when I run this, it should be pretty much fine. So now, like, junior people will ask, why is that better? I mean, it's the same. Well, not the same, at least at all not the same. I mean, and all the single responsibilities and like placing things and separation of concerns and all those stuff that you should actually learn is here. It's just better maintenance and easier to reason about and easier to find and easier to extend. I don't load things in like single class. You should avoid that at all costs. So after like moving it here, we can, and passing the test, we need to move to the next refactor stage. And in this stage, I would say, okay, that's better because it's now in separated place and it's also in a correct layer. So that's pretty cool. But what I also need is like still the separation of concern. Why is it registry? I mean, you know, like registry would make sense if things can be added in at runtime, but this, no, you can just set it up straight up. So I don't like this register handler function. I mean, I think we would benefit if we can set up a config of handlers and provide it in some sort of like constructor or something like this, and then just use it. These handlers will not change. I mean, once you, as a developer, I added all my handlers, I expect them to work from the beginning to the end of my application, like